Hi, this is Deborah Brown from Research Triangle High School. I'm sorry I can't join you today for the webinar, but I thought I would record a little bit about what some of my students did when I asked them to think about the things that the collaborative planning team for the North Carolina Museum Art has been talking about and try to imagine a new museum experience. I teach high school English at a small charter school called Research Triangle High School in the middle of RTP, and I asked some of my 11th grade students, and this is my standards class, so this is not my top-level honors students, to look at a unit that we were working on and to read and analyze some poetry from the Harlem Renaissance and then design a new museum experience that would somehow incorporate the poetry that we were studying. So some of the specifics that they had for this assignment. First of all, they were told that the art exhibit that they designed has to make use of at least one of the items that was currently in the NCMA collection. And then they could use other works of art from other museums. Like they could imagine that we could request something to be on loan. So I just wanted them to kind of think broadly about the world of art and the different things that might be out there that they might want to include in their exhibit. Their art exhibit had to incorporate some kind of sensory elements, and this could be up to them, but it could be sight, sound, taste, touch, anything of that nature, and that the sensory element's purpose was all to help convey the meaning and tone of the poem and the intent of the author. So a little background on the class. Again, this was an English language arts class at the sophomore level. So these were the junior level. So these were 11th graders. There were no honor students in the class. It was all standard students. About a quarter of the students actually have an IEP, an individualized education plan. We were studying two novels together as a unit, The Great Gatsby and Their Eyes Are Watching God. And in these two different novels, we were comparing and contrasting the different ways and views of the world and culture and societies that came out of the 1920s as presented in these two very different pieces of literature. So we had about 12 different groups design projects in all, and some of the things that they all had in common was they really embraced this idea of a multi-sensory museum experience. Most of them used some sort of audience interaction, that is, the people who would come to the exhibit would interact with those materials in some way, and most of them also had something at the end of the exhibit experience that allowed for audience response or reflection, which wasn't even something I had added into the project, but I thought was kind of an interesting design feature that most of them incorporated. So I'll just highlight one or two of the examples. One of the poems that a group worked on was the Langston Hughes poem, Mother to Son. And this is the one you may be familiar with. It ends with the line about life to me ain't been no crystal stair. And there's this complete metaphor that's extended throughout the whole poem of life being like climbing a staircase and what kind of a life that this mother of the poem who's narrating to her son has had. And the students there, probably not all that surprisingly, designed some sort of a staircase with different parts of the way, have the poem set up on the wall or interacted with the different parts of the way along it, with the idea that when you got to the top, people could design a new step that might be one of their own personal struggles in life, and there could be some place to leave a sense of what each individual person's staircase might be on their life journey. Another poem that was given to a different group was called Incident by County Cullen, and it's a very short poem, but it's a boy's memory of this trip that he took one time with his father to Baltimore and all these amazing things that he saw, but the one thing that he remembers was another little boy who stuck out his tongue and called him a racial slur. And this group designed something that would finish with a wall where people could leave memories of their own encounters with racism, their own specific personal incidents. I'll give you a little more detail for one of the poems that was developed. And this was a poem called The Negro Speaks of Rivers by Langston Hughes. And this particular team really kind of envisioned this idea of the different stations, that there would be a river, a place to, people would hear and see the poem at the same time. There would be paintings and things that would be incorporated, water to dip their hands in, food from Africa that they could sample, a hut that they could enter and touch, blocks and pyramids that they could build along the way, chains that they could touch and rattle, jazz music playing from the period, and then a sunset at the end that the person engaging in the exhibit could kind of control when the sun would actually set. So their vision for this exhibit was that people would enter into the exhibit space. There would be a curved walkway that would either look like a river or have actual water flowing in it. And at every curve would be a different station. And at each station, you could push a button to hear a rich voice. A lot of times they suggested James Earl Jones, that would narrate that part of the poem, along with environmental sounds of water and insects. And then the different stations would all have some sort of a sensory experience or a piece of artwork that would match up to what was being described in the poem at that point. And they envisioned using some of the artwork from the museum collection as well as perhaps bringing in a few things from the outside. And the poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, involves this idea again of life as a journey, but really the journey of the African American people coming through these different places in Africa and then eventually coming over to the United States and then eventually winning their freedom. So this idea of, incorporating different parts of the African artwork, and this particular artwork they suggested from the Congo Station, for example. So I saw the students come up with a lot of really cool examples. Some of them imagine domes that things would be projected on, and again, this idea of very much having things that they could touch and feel and taste and smell. But some of the things that I noticed pretty much across the board in all the different groups. First of all, they got it right away. They really saw this connection between the literature and the artwork, and that was the easiest part of the whole thing. They said, oh wait, this thing would fit in with this other piece really well, and they were very excited about it. They seemed really eager to have a very dynamic museum experience. They talked a lot about anyone coming into their exhibit should be able to do things, not just see things. They were all very enthusiastic about the project. They were very excited with this idea of designing it, and they all reported that they would like to attend each other's exhibits. They all said, oh man, I would go to and see that at your exhibit, when we presented all of them to the classes. So there's just a little bit of a sample of some of the things that happened in my classroom when I asked the students to kind of imagine some new solutions for what we might do with the interactive with the museum and with our educational program. And that's the end. Thanks so much. Bye now.